Hi, I'm Congressman John Molinar. I represent the 700,000 people of Michigan's 4th Congressional District, and it's an honor to work for them every day. Right now, I'm focused on rebuilding our economy, defeating the virus, and protecting the Great Lakes.
They say the soul of a person is tested in times of crisis. Well, I don't know who they are, but I know who I am.
6 News is your local election headquarters, and we're here with Representative Tim Walberg running for re-election for Michigan's 7th Congressional District in the November general election against Democrat Gretchen Driscoll. Representative Walberg, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's great to be with you.
Why do you deserve another term?
Well, I think I've done what I said I would do in keeping the election promises I've made to vote the will of our district, to work for conservative principles that grow the economy. We've seen that take place until COVID hit.
Senator Peters may keep a low profile, but he prides himself on getting things done.
I have written and passed more bills through the United States Senate than any other U.S. senator, either Democratic or Republican.
9 bills to be exact, that address everything from agriculture to space and cybersecurity. Peters is running for his 2nd term as senator, but his life as a politician goes back decades. Peters started his career as a city councilman in 1991, was elected to the Michigan State Senate in 1994, the House of Representatives in 2008, and became a senator in 2015.
I'm very interested in bringing more defense-related jobs and contracts into Michigan. I'm extremely interested in making more of those supplies, making more of this equipment that we need so desperately, like masks and gloves, our pharmaceuticals, here in the state of Michigan.
Representative Slotkin says she's made it her mission to listen to people in her district, and she has held more than 24 town halls to hear what her constituents have to say.
When you are a member of Congress, people literally come up to you wherever they can get their hands on you, and they want to tell you their pain. You know, what is really keeping them up at night. And your job is to quite literally take that pain and that frustration and that suffering and turn it into your mandate to fight in Washington.
From 6 News, this is the 6 News Capitol Rundown.
The interview that we did, I basically said to her, whether you like this or not, after you give that speech, this speculation thing is going to continue.
Will she or won't she? Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic looks at the national chatter surrounding Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
Michigan's critical heading into 2020.
Republicans claim they've got a jump on Democrats here in Michigan in 2020.
I'm doing really well, and we have a ton of momentum.
And not throwing in the towel. Despite gaining little support in Iowa, why presidential candidate Tom Steyer says he's still in the game. It's all straight ahead. The 6 News Capitol Rundown starts now.
We did 2 sound bites with her. One last week in which I said, do you want to be vice president? And the answer was very clear. You said last September, I do not want to be vice president. That still holds.
Correct.
That has not changed.
Not at all.
And it won't.
Correct.
All right, so now she said, I don't want to be vice president. What would you interpret from that?
She's avoiding really trying to really give her deep feelings about what she really wants to be. Maybe being politically correct.
Well, words make a difference in politics. There's a difference between want to be vice president.
Yeah.
And so now this earlier week, having thought about this, I said, there's another question that she needs to be asked, which is, if you got the phone call, what would you do?
Welcome to a special presentation of 6 News. For the next hour, we'll examine and review voter information with Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, Attorney General Dana Nessel, and your host, Sherry Jones. This is Making It Count.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Sherry Jones, and this is Making It Count, a voter information town hall. Secretary Benson, how can someone really know if they're registered to vote, and what should they do if they're not registered but they still want to vote?
Important question. If someone wants to confirm their registration, you can go to michigan.gov/vote. That's your one-stop shop for all voting needs and information. And on that website, you can confirm your registration. And if you're not registered to vote at this point, you can go to your township or city clerk's office with a residency verification and register to vote right then and there up until 8 p.m. on Election Day.
Can I take a ballot selfie? big question. And what exactly are the rules of what can you take and what you cannot take pictures of on Election Day?
Well, you can take a picture of your own ballot, but you cannot take a picture of anybody else's ballot. So when you are inside the polling area, it's very important that you not capture anyone else's ballot but your own. Obviously, we have privacy laws when it comes to each and every person's vote. No one is allowed to know how another person has voted, but if you want to make it clear how you voted, you're allowed to take a picture of your own ballot.
6 News presents the 8th Congressional District Debate. Here's tonight's moderator, Sherry Jones.
Good evening and welcome to the first debate between the candidates for Michigan's 8th Congressional District. Tonight's debate will feature incumbent Democrat Alyssa Slotkin and challenger Republican Paul Young. Well, how do you see or what do you feel is the proper role of government in American life?
Sure. I mean, there's no bigger conversation that typically characterizes differences between Democrats and Republicans. I believe that our government's role is to make available the opportunity for every person, no matter who they are or where they're from, to make it in our country in a way that lets them live out the American dream.
We talk about, and we want to live up to the idea of this, we are all created equal, that we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we have a Constitution that's established that gives us a framework for how our government should help to guarantee those rights and freedoms for people so they can live their lives as they choose to live them in all kinds of different ways. So they can choose to worship how they want to live. They can pursue the type of living that they want to pursue. They can live their lives as they want to live them, and they can live them free from fear of both repression by their own government, but from dangers that could come from other people as well.
This is 6 News at 6.
The road to the White House runs through Michigan, and today that road led Vice President Mike Pence right here to Lansing. It's our top story tonight at 6. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sherry Jones.
And I'm Lauren Thompson. The visit today closed down roads and drew hundreds of people downtown.
6 News traveled with the Vice President in his motorcade across the capital city.
We have team coverage for you tonight, starting with another exclusive one-on-one interview with the Vice President you'll only see here on 6 News. From Capital Region International Airport
is the food here as good as I think it is?
To the Fleetwood Diner on Lansing South Side.
Well, hello, Michigan.
And in front of a crowded room at the Lansing Center, Vice President Mike Pence highlighted the high stakes here in Michigan as he made his third stop here in the last 3 months.
I think the reason why President Trump won Michigan in 2016 and why we're going to win Michigan again in 2020 is because this president has fought for and stood for the common sense, ideals, and values of the heartland.
The Vice President spoke exclusively with 6 News today along the way. He's here to highlight agriculture, but also spoke about trade, praising the Trump administration's accomplishments, especially the new United States-Mexico-Canada agreement known as the USMCA. Second Lady Karen Pence stopped here in mid-Michigan this afternoon after spending the morning campaigning in West Michigan. Mrs. Pence was on campus at MSU learning about the Heroes to Hives program. The Second Lady is a bee lover herself and has had beehives installed in the gardens at the vice presidential residence in D.C. Local veterans who graduated from this program shared their stories of going on to become successful farmers with honey-based businesses. The Second Lady says visiting Heroes to Hives is something she's wanted to do for a long time.
The vets told me today something that I just loved. They said, you know, when we served in the military, we were serving a cause greater than ourselves.
Joe Biden did not hold back when talking about what he would describe as President Trump's failed and irresponsible way to fighting COVID-19. He even credits the president with starting a recession.
He failed to do his job on purpose.
This afternoon, Biden flat out says President Trump lied to the American people by downplaying the virus and is responsible for the deaths of thousands of people, saying if he acted 2 weeks sooner, 54,000 people's lives would have been spared, according to experts. The audio released by Bob Woodward shows President Trump knew back in February the virus was deadlier than the flu.
You know, his failure has not only cost lives, it sent our economy in a tailspin. It cost millions more in American livelihoods.
This is 6 News at 6.
Thank you, Michigan. Go out and vote. Go out and vote.
President Donald Trump makes an appearance in Lansing today to rally voters for the election that's just a week away. It is our top story tonight at 6. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sherry Jones.
And I'm Lauren Thompson. Today's rally at the Capital Region International Airport was just one stop on a packed campaign schedule for the president this week. Our Luke Snyder was there this afternoon. He's here for you now with the latest. Luke?
Hi, Sherry and Lauren. Weather conditions were less than ideal today, but that didn't stop Trump supporters from showing up and by the thousands just outside one of the airport's hangars in a speech that lasted about an hour. A lot of the focus today was on the economy, returning to a normal life, reopening schools, and a promise of a vaccine. Today also added a new chapter and the back and forth between Trump and Governor Wittwer. The governor previously called today a recipe for disaster as COVID-19 cases continue to rise. Trump called the rise in cases due to the high number of tests being done. And as far as mask wearing goes, it was a bit of mix between people wearing masks and people deciding not to. And with a crowd this large, social distancing did not happen. Some areas were standing room only. But as far as Governor Wittwer goes, there were chances of lock her up. The president adding strong words for Wittwer and her previous lockdown measures.
Your governor's a disaster. They got to open up this state. And she's got to keep her husband away from sailing and fishing.
Well, we have the results of another exclusive new poll for you today showing how some Michigan voters feel about the ongoing presidential campaign and the upcoming election. When asked if the election was held today, who would you vote for? 39% of those surveyed say they would vote for President Donald Trump, while 48% say they would vote for Democrat Joe Biden. 13% refused to say or would vote for a third party. 58% also said they are very certain that they will vote. The other 38% say they have already voted. Finally, when discussing how voters will cast their ballots in the election, 42% said they'll do so in person at the polls. Another 57% said they plan to vote absentee.
This is a 6 News 2020 election special with your host, Sherry Jones.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Election 2020 could end up being one of the most important in our lifetimes. And it's up to us, the people of Michigan, who will help pick the next president and decide who controls the Senate, as well as shaping the future of the Michigan legislature and the state Supreme Court. In the next hour, you're going to hear from the politicians, the pollsters, and your fellow Michiganders as we cover everything from the counties to the commander-in-chief. And we begin tonight by talking about why the Great Lakes state is so important. Most political maps, like the one that you see here on 270 to win, puts Michigan in the leans Democrat column.
President Trump is recovering from the coronavirus.
China and Iran. China and Iran.
China and Iran.
So I said to my people, slow the testing down.
We'll get through this together.
But if you've seen all those commercials, it's proof that neither side is ready to give up on Michigan, because we've been here before.
Here for you from your local election headquarters. This is 6 News at 11.
And now the polls are closed across Michigan and the votes are being tallied for the 2020 election. It is our top story tonight at 11. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sherry Jones.
And I'm Lauren Thompson. Thanks for tuning in to this special election edition of 6 News at 11.
Here's where things stand right now in the race for the White House. With 38% of the Michigan's precincts reporting President Trump has the lead with 55% of the vote. Joe Biden is trailing with 43% of the vote. 6 News anchor Siobhan Klepper has been keeping an eye on this race for us all evening long.
She's here for you now from our digital studio with reaction from both parties. Siobhan?
Sherry, Lauren, both campaigns were going into this election today pretty confident. Michigan polls and CBS National polls all favor Joe Biden to win the Great Lakes state. But at this point, like you mentioned, President Trump has an edge right now.
And we, of course, are anxiously awaiting results as well on the 8th Congressional District. That's between Democrat incumbent Alyssa Slotkin and Republican Paul Young.
Our Kaylee Marentet has been keeping up with the candidates and this race all evening. Kaylee, what can you tell us as the results are starting to come in?
Sherry, Lauren, we haven't heard any results yet from this race. Both candidates are staying hopeful, though, because there's still a lot more votes to count. The 8th Congressional District includes Lansing and all of Ingham County, all of Livingston County, and the northern half half of Oakland County. And with 19% of precincts reporting, right now Democratic incumbent Alyssa Slotkin is at 38%, Republican Paul Young is at 59%.
So Sheriff Tom Reich and Mr. Rick Jones, thank you both so much for joining us today and for giving Mid-Michigan a chance to kind of hear where you stand on different issues and to get to know you both a little bit better. We're going to start with Sheriff Reich with his first question, and then I'm going to be alternating between both of you for my questions. Sheriff, why do you think that you should continue leading the Eaton County Sheriff's Office?
Well, I've got a proven track record, number one. I am the best candidate. I'm not a practiced politician. Debating is something I'm not familiar with. You won't get any slick speeches from me.
Thank you so much, Representative Angela Wittwer and Republican candidate Gina Johnson, to our 6 News virtual conversation for District 71. Now, I have a handful of topics that we'll have an opportunity to talk about. I will give you both an opportunity to answer and also to respond to the other one if need be. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to begin with Representative Wittwer. Why do you believe you should be reelected?
Thank you, Jorma, and thank you for the invitation today, and thank you to WLNS TV6 for hosting this, and for everyone watching. I appreciate your time tonight. I am Angela Wittwer. I'm your state representative, and I've lived in our district for more than 50 years. In fact, I graduated high school from Waverly High School